First aid is something very important for all of us to know. Now, what do you do if somebody has a cut? You need to know how to bandage the wound. You need to know how to keep that wound from getting infected. And that is what we're going to focus on our video today. My name is Jim Reynolds, and I'm with Ultimate Mission. And Ultimate Mission trains medical missionaries all around the world to go into their communities and to try to help people with any type of health problems they have. And so one of the things that people have in different parts of the world is they have cuts, and a lot of these cuts get infected. Lynette Holm is a registered nurse. She is going to help us today try to learn how we can take care of wounds and cuts. So Lynette, you have been a nurse for how many years?
Oh, more than 50 years.
More than 50 years. Okay, so you should know this information. Great, because I need to learn this kind of stuff. So how should you basically care for a wound? If I get a cut, what do I do? What do you do?
Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is to make sure that you're doing everything clean. So the first thing I'm going to do, now this is a hand sanitizer. I'm going to wash my hands with it. Soap and water is probably what you're going to have, and you should wash your hands. Then you're going to wash the wound. Now I have some clean water here that you can wash the wound with, but if you have some clean water in your home that has been boiled or in some way it has been sanitized, you can use that water. And you can use a mild soap solution, a very mild soap solution, to clean the wound the first time. You're not going to want to do that every time you put a new dressing on, but the first time you're going to want to do that. So if you don't have some sterile water, you would probably want to boil it, and while you're at it, just add a little bit of salt to it. So for 240 milliliters or 1 cup of water, if you put half a teaspoon of salt in it, you have what's called a saline solution. And this is the same composition basically that our body is, because we have salt in our cells in our body, and so it's pretty much the same. So it's very gentle for the body, and that would be something that'd be very good to clean a wound in between times.
Okay, just basically saline solution. You don't have to have the fancy different things that you can get from the store. You don't have to buy it. You can just make a saline solution. Very good.
So you're going to boil it for about 15 minutes, and then you're going to let it cool. You wouldn't ever want to put anything hot into a wound. So you're going to let it cool, and then you have a saline solution that should be good for 3 or 4 days. And that is something that you can continue to use on that wound.
Okay. Now I want to mention here that we're talking about bandaging the wound and everything. This is after we've stopped the bleeding.
Yes. We talked about bleeding before, and we applied pressure. And we used the cleanest thing that we had available to put on the wound to stop the bleeding. And instead of taking it off and putting a new one on, we just kept adding more to it until it stopped bleeding. Sometimes it can take 5 minutes, maybe it's going to take 30 minutes, but you can get the bleeding to stop unless you've actually amputated a limb, and that may be a really serious thing, which would take more pressure, and it may even take, if somebody's life is at stake, you may even want to put a tourniquet on to stop the bleeding.
Yeah, and so you can look up other things as far as how tourniquets work. We're not going to go through that in this video, but a tourniquet may be necessary, so that's a good thing to look up. So, so we've got the bleeding stopped right now, and we want to make sure that this wound does not get infected. So what is a good way to wrap a wound? Or so we're not going to put Neosporin on. We're not going to put any kind of antibiotic ointment on here.
Yes, we are.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Okay. What we're going to do is, it depends on the type of wound, but it's probably, most wounds are going to be cuts that you find, but sometimes you'll have an abrasion, especially if somebody's fallen down and skinned their knee or their elbow. And it's very good. You don't want the bandage to stick to the skin, because the skin is repairing itself even after the first day. And if you take that bandage off, you're going to rip off some of the good new skin that's growing. Now, one thing that you can do is, if it is stuck, you can take some water and you can put on the dressing to moisten it, then it will come off easily. But if you take a little bit of antibiotic ointment or a little bit of Vaseline, and you have to use an applicator. You can't, if you put this directly onto the wound, then this thing has become contaminated. So you need to use something that's clean, even if it's just a clean piece of cloth. Take off a little bit of this, and just a thin layer on top of the wound will keep the bandage from sticking. So that's number one. And now I'm going to just show on you
Yeah,
a
let's do
way
it on
that,
this arm here. I think
okay.
this is, yeah.
Okay, so let's pretend like we have put a clean dressing on this arm, and now we need to wrap it with something. And some of you ladies may want to just take some cloth that you have at home to do this. And so what we're going to do, this is kind of a nifty way that I've just learned how to wrap after 50 years. Okay, so what we're going to do is start to wrap around here. But do you see how I've left just a little tag like that? So the cool thing about that is that I can tie the bandage at the end and I don't have to have tape. So I'm just kind of going around here, going a couple more times. And you know, you don't want it to be real loose, otherwise it's just going to slide down the arm, so you need to have a little bit of tension there to hold it. And then when I get to the end of this, I'm just going to take it like this and tie it into a bow, like that. And now we have a way for that dressing to stay on. And another thing is, I have seen this in hospitals in Africa, that they use this outside dressing and wash it and put it out on the clothesline in the sun and use it again maybe the next day or something. But in this case, you're going to have two, because while one is being washed, you still have to have another one on the bandage.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to leave that right there, and then I'm going to show another type of what if the cut is really deep, and what can we do? And we can make a butterfly bandage.
Okay.
And so I'm going to just take a piece of plaster or adhesive. I'm going to turn it like this so that the sticky side isn't together. If you put the sticky side together, you're going to have a very hard time using this. And I'm just going to trim it on both sides. And then I'm going to take the wound. Okay, we're going to pretend, let's see if we can find something on his arm here. Okay, let's pretend that we have a cut right down along here. I'm going to attach this here, and I'm going to clean it first and make it very clean so that if it's bleeding still, it's not going to stick. So we need to try and get it to stop bleeding, and we also need to make sure that it's dry. So I can attach it to one side, I can put the wound together, put this across the wound, like that. Okay, show them your nifty butterfly bandage. Sometimes if it's a long cut, you may have to put several of these on there. Then you'll put a dressing over that. And then the next day you're going to want to look at it, make sure that it's not infected. We're going to be talking about infections in the next video that we do. And so we'll just take a look at it, but we're not going to remove this. This is like a stitch.
Okay.
And it's going to be covered over, and then we'll put this type of dressing on that. And you can do this with a piece of cloth. You don't have to have a fancy dressing material like I have. And then we should also talk about stitching. What we did was something for a minor cut. If you have a really deep cut that needs to be seen by a doctor.
Yeah, now how do I know? I mean, there's cuts and cuts. I mean, I have cuts all over myself that I've had before. So how do I know which ones need to be stitched and which ones I can just put a butterfly on and which one I can just put a regular Band-Aid on?
Okay, well, for sure, if it's a really deep cut, there's a chance that you've cut some tendons or ligaments or something like that, and you would want to see a doctor. If you have something like me in the kitchen, I'm cooking and I cut myself with a knife, something like this is probably going to work fine. So you're going to have to decide the length of it, if it's very long, or you're going to see how deep it is. And if you feel like this is going to work, do it. The thing is, if you're very far from medical help, you're probably going to try this type of stitch. And
because you only have a few hours, right, before you can't get it stitched any.
Right. So if you hurt yourself and it looks like it needs stitches and it looks like it's extensive, you need to get to medical help within 6 to 8 hours.
Okay.
Otherwise, they're going to say, sorry, but we can't stitch that. And especially if it gets dirty, you're going to want it to keep clean. And you need to if a dressing becomes dirty, it's almost better not to even have a dressing on if it's dirty. You're just holding that dirt in. So you want to keep dressings clean, and you need to make sure that you, every day or two, that you're looking at them and making sure that there's no infection.
Okay, so what would an infection look like if it was going to be infected? If my wound right now started to become infected, what would that look like?
It's going to turn red around it, and there may be, if it's very long, there could be pus, drainage, and it's going to be swollen, and it's going to be warm. The skin around it will be warm.
Okay, and painful to the touch, I would imagine?
Very painful, yes. Okay. And there's more signs, and we're going to be talking about that in the next video.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Very good.
That we'll go through, but briefly, those are the ones: redness, swelling, pain.
Okay, very good. And then how often do I need to change this bandage?
Well, every 1 to 2 days you should change it. At the beginning, you would change it probably daily, but you don't want to interfere with those new cells that are growing. You want to be really careful. Remember, you got to put some water on it if it's sticking, and you just need to change it at first more often, and then as you've determined it's not going to become infected, you can wait a couple days.
Okay, so now what if I take a bath or a shower and I get the bandage all wet?
You take it off first and take the shower.
Oh, okay.
But now if you have this little butterfly on there, you're going to leave it there.
All right.
But it might have to be replaced. So there's another thing you can do. You can take a plastic bag and put over your arm, and you can prevent water from getting to that area.
Okay, because you don't want this bandage to be wet and stay on top of your wound.
No, if it has to be dry and clean.
Okay, and the biggest thing that we're worried about is infection. We want it to heal. We do not want to get infected. But
one more thing that I want to mention is that a lot of times we'll have a wound and we allow a scab to grow on it. This wound isn't going to heal as fast as one that's kept moist. So I'm saying I want it dry, but I just want a little bit of moisture, maybe from some Vaseline or some antibiotic ointment that will help it to stay a little bit moist. Or sometimes saline is used to keep it moist.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, thank you, Lynette. I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to tell us about taking care of a minor cut?
Yeah, these are minor cuts. I just want to reiterate that if it's serious, you need to go to a doctor.
As soon as you can.
Yeah.
So, thank you. And again, reiterate that the biggest problem, especially in some of the villages and different parts of the world where we work, is infection. And so we want to be really, really careful when we first see these wounds that we clean them out very, very well. And it will probably be uncomfortable for the person that's getting the wound cleaned because it hurts.
Yes, the first time you clean the wound, you really have to clean it well. Now that's before all this new tissue is growing back.
Right.
If there's any dirt or anything, you need to get it out of the wound.
Even if you need to use a pair of tweezers to reach in and get the dirt and rocks or whatever's in the wound out.
Yeah. Because
any foreign object.
It's best done at the very beginning, and then you're starting to watch the wound heal.
Yeah.
And it has to be clean, though. Otherwise, the infection is going to start. But a wound is never sterile, but it should always be taken care of with the cleanest materials you have available.
Yeah, because it can be very serious. You can lose a limb. You can, it could cause death if a wound is not taken care of properly.
Yeah. And the other thing that I should say is that if you put your dressing materials in the sun, like even for about 30 minutes, that can sterilize them. You can sterilize them in an oven. You can, if you have a dryer, you know, you could do that. So mostly I think the sun is going to be the best method to keeping it very clean.
So there you go. Well, thank you, Lynette. I appreciate all of the information on this. I hope you were able to learn something today. And if you like the videos that we're doing and you want to see more, please hit the subscribe button underneath and hit the bell so you can be notified when our next video is. Thank you very much. God bless. Have a wonderful day. We would love for you to be a part of our Ultimate Mission family. Please subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, like and share our videos, donate if you would like. Let's work together to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world.